I really loved the movie, and while watching it, I felt very enthusiastic at times. They definitely delivered something special and unique. This surprising feeling came to an immediate halt, however, and during this review, if you can call it that, I will primarily focus on this event and why I think it didn't fit the movie. Of course, this is just my opinion, based on probably not seeing or understanding the reasoning behind this decision. Therefore, calling it a mistake is just clickbait. There are many memorable scenes and quotes that I think were great, and it will take some time for me to really let it sink in. A part of me thinks they added this story twist halfway into the movie, as Eggers referred to the Northman as a really simple revenge tale, and perhaps wanted to change that a little. To me, this scene came as a shock, and it was no doubt intended. The event that I thought pricked immersion and was so far away from what I expected to see happening was, of course, Emlet's mother, Queen Gudrun, disgracing King Arvindale, who had long been dead since, and far worse, gladly admitting to begging for the death of her husband and even her own son. I imagine that a good wife and mother would have spoken something good of her husband, the war raven, no matter how little. She could have sympathized with Emlet because his father was betrayed and cowardly killed by his own brother, taking him down with arrows and spears instead of fighting him like a man. She could have mourned the fact that his father wasn't able to achieve an honorable death in accordance with his wishes and faith.
I will die in honor.
Instead of this, she admits to orchestrating the whole event.
I am your death.
By her own account, laughing when she hears that her husband and child are killed. And I'm not a history professor or an expert on Norse mythology or religion, but somehow I think it's safe to say that ordering the death of your child, your own flesh and blood, can be considered pure evil, regardless of where one comes from or from what time. This was a difficult turn of events for me personally, and I think the story doesn't do enough to support her accusations. And from what we have seen up until that point,
How I've missed you, my son.
very little is shown to justify his hateful thoughts. There are several examples of this, most of which I think make Gudrun's claim that Arvindale was a bad man who violently abused her for decades, which seems to be a trend these days, a whole lot less believable. First example, right in the beginning, we can see Arvindale exercising restraint, moderation, and humility. Excellent qualities for any man, perhaps even more so for a king. In contrast, his brother only knows how to deal with problems by eliminating them. A man whom the people do not respect, only fear. He's also quick to anger, and he is resentful of his status as half-brother to the king. Despite being well treated and given respect and acknowledgement from his brother the king, his jealousy clouds his mind, makes him susceptible to the whispers of his wife, who controls his actions, and this leads him astray from the gods. Above all, he was manipulated into doing something he knew was wrong, as he clearly hesitates before striking Arvindale down, and this followed him all the days of his life. In comparison, Thulsa Doom was completely ruthless and felt no hesitation at all. It's also without a doubt the best staring scene in any movie, even surpassing the old Charles Bronson or Clint Eastwood Western movies, in my opinion. As it is without question that Thulsa Doom is in complete control, not only of himself, his men, but also his enemies. And where Fjolnir has no problem ordering the death of children, Thulsa Doom is gonna live. Throughout the movie, Hamlet is guided and aided
by a higher power.
And while the wild animals come to Hamlet's aid and hear his call, they harass Queen Gudrun and attack Fjolnir. Perhaps an indication that neither one is supported by the gods and that their household is cursed. The fact that Hamlet is guided cements his rightful claim to his father's kingdom and justifies his quest for revenge. He stated that he has known nothing but hate, but it is also that hate that made him strong, that gave him purpose, and made him survive against all odds.
Look at the strength of your body, the desire in your heart. I gave you this.
For it is only because of his hate that he learned to value the love he felt for his woman much more intensely. And I think the movie conveys this very well. One like his brother Fjolnir wishes to die in battle as a man standing up without a shameful grey beard like Fjolnir. His wife refers to this as simpleness, claiming that his father was an abusing simpleton who only cared for silver and other women, further emphasizing the rift between her and her husband. And while she praises Fjolnir for not making excuses when committing terrible atrocities, lewd or dishonorable acts, she condemns Arvindale for doing what he thinks is honorable, and objects when Arvindale wishes to prepare his son for his responsibilities.
He was a coward, feigning to be a king. He was nothing. He was just another proud, lust-stained slaver.
Strike. Strike! To Valhalla!
Those were not the actions of a coward. She refers to King Arvindale as a whoremonger, while at the same time praising Fjolnir for being a good man, while it is in fact Fjolnir who has children with several women and has no hesitations about using women or threatening them with death if they do not comply to his needs. King Arvindale, however, is never seen misbehaving or acting lustful as she states it. He is in fact a man very much in control and even refuses her when she tries to convince him to sleep with her. Showing at least to some extent that he values the gods and his honor above all else. Perhaps even his only son. For he also commands Amleth to seek revenge against any future attacker, knowing full well it will put him on a perilous road, all for the sake of his honor. While being badly wounded and in a situation where I imagine others would pray for a little comfort, these are the things on his mind. These are his goals, his principles, his way of life.
You spit in the face of your dead husband.
I curse your mother's evil.
King Arvindale's prediction turned out to be true, indicating, at least to some extent, that he was on the side of righteousness, realizing that you can't get a crown by stealing it. The war raven knows right from wrong, and he raises his son accordingly. There is also a distinct difference in how Arvindale raised Amleth and how Fjolnir and Gudrun raised their two sons. Amleth is referred to as an anti-hero, as he did participate in the plundering of a village, but he doesn't partake in the death and destruction of the innocent either, and only attacks those who are able to fight back. Fjolnir's children, on the other hand, are lazy, decadent, mentally and physically weak. They look down on others and mistreat those below them. They have no concept of what it is to rule, even over a farm, never mind a kingdom. And unlike what I imagine is the Viking way, taking something by conquest, hand-to-hand combat, or plunder, like King Arvindale or Amleth, Fjolnir's children expect to be given everything, indicating that they are spoiled and entitled. Fjolnir, who was an accomplished warrior himself, looks at his eldest son and laments his failure as a warrior while inheriting his father's quickness to anger. This is his failure. final example, and perhaps the most obvious. The director claims to make the Northman the most historically accurate Viking movie we could. While I imagine we are all thankful for the beautiful museum, quality set pieces, time-accurate weapons and clothing, creating a movie where the actors were occupied for 3 days trying to learn how to row and sink. Unlike some other movie we know, in which one of the most famous battles in all of human history is reduced to men fighting in their underwear and kings with piercing fetishes.
This is...
Go take a piss.
For thousands of years, marriages were often arranged based on political and financial considerations. This was done because life was generally a short affair, and steps had to be taken to ensure that the family line would continue to survive and prosper. By marrying two powerful rivals, peace would prevail. Wars no longer needed to be fought. Many lives would be saved. Money could be invested. Castles and villages built. The people had a chance to live and prosper, and their children's children would inherit an even larger kingdom, ensuring their survival and legacy. This was a common practice, and yet King Arvendale married, by her own accounts, a slave, and then made her the queen. It sounds like a Disney story. Childbirth was so dangerous, in fact, for both women and infant, that a woman would often make out her will as soon as she found out that she was pregnant. And because the mortality rate was so high, it was normal for a king to have children with several women, as most were not expected to survive. It would have been much more probable if King Arvendale married a younger princess from another nearby powerful kingdom, like an offspring of King Haraldr of Norway, who ends up taking his lands after he dies, something who could have strengthened him politically. Further emphasized by the fact that Arvendale greatly values his family's bloodline. The difference between high and lowborns was also often emphasized on the farm, creating a large space between those in power and those who serve, something his father, King Arvendale, never did, as his friendship with Ymir clearly indicates. Ymir also warns us of the queen's duplicitous and disloyal nature right at the beginning, getting his tongue cut out for saying it and his eyes removed for seeing it. This unnatural way of seeing the world finally comes to a conclusion when the servants rise up against their masters with the help of Emleth. He specifically says,
Take your freedom and do with it what you will.
and the first thing they do is to decide to burn everything down. At this point, Fjolnir has no one to rely on to defend his territory, or even to protect the lives of his wife and children. To my knowledge, in many countries and throughout all ages, even today, it's not uncommon to have people working for a family inside the household.
Once a year, I find myself wealthier.
They were people who could be relied upon to ensure the safety, education, and day-to-day responsibilities of their children.
Yes, and your property, since she was born the daughter of your slave.
When I inherited you, I inherited a friend, not a slave.
Still, Esther has come with me from Antioch to ask your permission to marry.
It's granted. I wish you the joy of many grandchildren.
If it is the Lord's will, I shall rejoice.
Fjolnir and his wife, however, are alone. They have lost their kingdom, their lives, and their children. They mistreated those around them, never once felt pity or remorse, and everything they had built was destroyed. Only nearing the end does the line between good and wrong get blurred. On that old saying, evil begets evil, turns out to be the closing sentiment of the movie. Personally, I imagined Amleth freeing his mother and killing Fjolnir. She could have tried to soothe Amleth's hate and remember both brothers with honor, regardless of what had transpired in the past. By doing this, she could have saved the lives of both her children and future grandchildren, perhaps eventually even reclaiming his father's kingdom in a sequel, creating a reputation for himself that the blood of Arvandale still lives and that he's back to reclaim what is his. Instead, we got to see a possessed evil woman who managed to single-handedly cause the destruction of every member in her family. Once by motivating the jealous half-brother to kill his king. Second, by ordering the death of her blameless and innocent son. The third time, instead of calming and reasoning with Amleth, she tried to poison him against his father, multiplying his hate. And lastly, by vilifying her firstborn son, whose sole purpose in life was only to reclaim his father's honor and free his mother from captivity. All in all, definitely not a movie you would expect to see in today's climate, where even sitting with your legs apart is by some considered to be a sign of toxic masculinity.
Historically, the movement toward androgyny occurs in late phases of culture, okay, as a civilization is starting to unravel, okay, and that you can find it again and again and again through history in the Greek art, okay, you can see it happening. All of a sudden, okay, there's a kind of there's the sculptures of handsome nude young men athletes that used to be very robust, okay, in the archaic period suddenly began to seem like wet noodles, okay, toward the end, okay, and that the people who live in such periods, a late phase of culture, whether it's the Hellenistic era, whether it's the Roman Empire, whether it's the mauve decade of Oscar Wilde in the 1890s, whether it's Weimar Germany, people who live at such times, okay, feel that they're very sophisticated, they're very cosmopolitan, okay, and homosexuality, heterosexuality, so what, anything goes, and so on, all right, and so, but from the perspective of historical distance, okay, you can see that it's a culture that no longer believes in itself, okay, and then what you invariably get are people who are convinced of the power of heroic masculinity. You see them, starting to mass on the outsides of the culture, and that's what we have right now.